I'm the director of the Illinois State Library. It is...
Pennsylvania's getting it.
Okay, good. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our last session of ILEAD USA. It's bittersweet for the State Library staff, for me, definitely. We've been through quite a journey in the past 9 months. And I know that when our iLeaders walked through the door in March, and I would guess this is true in our sister states as well, and they heard about what they would be doing and the long hours and all of the wonderful opportunities that they were about to have, they were a little bit overwhelmed, right, guys? Yes. It was just a crush of activities and a little overwhelming. By the time June rolled around, our teams were feeling like, you know, this is really a wonderful thing that we can do. We are contributing to our profession. We are growing professionally. We are growing as leaders. We are learning all kinds of things. And in June, they started to settle in and feel like, okay, we can do this. This is going to be a wonderful thing. And we've just had yesterday our big ta-da presentations of the projects. They were wonderful. They were absolutely incredible, weren't they? Oh my gosh. I know that from what I've read on the Twitter feed, all across the nation, the projects were just off the charts great. So I'm here to say, on behalf of everyone involved in ILEAD USA, whether it's state library staff or the instructor corps or the mentors, whoever is involved in putting on this party, that we are proud of you. We are really, really proud of you. You have done something that is really hard. You have come together as a team. You made a commitment to do something important. You didn't know how to do it, and you learned how to do it. You talked through your difficulties. You made decisions. You came to a place where you could say, I've accomplished something. And I want to tell you, it's just the most wonderful thing to watch all of you go through this evolution of panic and terror in the beginning to rejoicing and we did it in the end. I see hugs going on in the back and just, you know, it's been a journey, hasn't it? So we are proud of you. We applaud you for your hard work. We hope that all of you, whichever state you're in, will take the experience back with you. And will say to your coworkers and your community, I know how to do something together now. I know how to do something as a team now. I know how to do something with people I may not even have met yet. I can do that. I know how. Because each of you has proven that you are able to do it in a spectacular way. And I'm just, congratulations and bravo to each and every one of you. Bravo, bravo. So, one thing that I would like to see on the Twitter feed and from you here in Illinois is on November 16th in New Orleans. I'm part of a panel and we're talking about an IMLS panel, and we're talking about how to grow the profession, how to continue to build capacity within the profession. And of course, I'm talking about my ILEAD USA. So I would like to see on the Twitter feed, and if there's anything here in this room that y'all want to tell me, that would be great. I'd like to hear from you, something that you would really like to be sure gets said in front of IMLS, in front of other people who have grants, in front of other library and museum archive professionals. What's the thing about this program that you would like, if you could go to the top of a mountain, what would you shout about ILEAD USA? So you can think about that and tell me later. You can tweet about it, but let me know, because I'd love to incorporate it into my presentation. So, okay, well, with that, it is my honor, and I do mean my honor, my privilege, my delight to present to you my colleague David Lankes from Syracuse University. David and I have been on this journey together since 2009, when we, over the phone, decided that we wanted to do a grant together. And we wanted to do that grant about librarians reaching out to their communities, doing something that that community needs, and really immersing and growing together as a cohort. And David has been our stalwart advocate. He's been our mentor in many ways, and has seen us through 5 different cohorts and the curriculum as the leader of our instructor corps. And all around Papa, so Papa to the program. So please help me welcome David Lankes.
She leaves the stage. Yesterday I got a phone call from a reporter who was trying to get another perspective on the idea of outsourcing public libraries. That there was a community that was currently looking at contracting out to run their library because they felt they could save money. They could run it more inexpensively. And one of the quotes that was shared with me by the reporter was, it's kind of like parking lots. We don't, this is a no-brainer. We can have people run our parking lots for a lot less money than us doing it ourselves. And, And this is, I understand when reporters are trying to lead you in a direction, but this was more like throwing red meat on the trail that I then had to take on. Because the idea that if all we do is circulate books, if all we do is collect and shelf and do acquisitions, in truth, we could outsource that. We could do it much more cheaply than what we do. We could staff it with people. We don't need expertise in master's degrees. We need a place to put books and put them on the shelf and then check them out. But we're different, right? Libraries are different than that. Libraries are different from that because they are built by librarians and they're built for a different purpose. They're not parking lots. And I don't mean parking lots many of us would love to have bigger parking lots, right? But it's not parking lots for stuff. We don't just park them on shelves and over the rest. It's not parking lots for parts of society that we don't know what to do with or how to deal with it, right? We don't look at the homeless population and say, oh good, there's a public library so they have restroom facilities. We don't look at a parking lot and say, oh, there's a group of folks with autism, let's send them to the library because we don't know what to do with them. They're not places where we have kids with obedience problems, with behavioral problems in our classroom. That's all right, we'll send them out of the classroom to the library for them to calm down. Parking lots. And so the truth is, if that's all you want, outsource it. But if that's all the community wants, or more importantly, if that's all the community needs, then we don't need libraries. What if instead, as we've heard in these sessions, in these speakers, and as you heard in the States, what we need are places for dreams and imagination. If what we need are for places for communities, be it communities of scholars, communities of students, be it communities of the elderly, communities of the young, communities of the disabled, communities of all of these folks to come together and say, this is what we want to be. It's not a parking lot. That's not just a place to put things. That's a place to make things, to make dreams and to make ideas. And can books fit in that? Yes, sure. But so can DVDs and 3D printers and apparently banana pianos, as we learned yesterday. We do these things because a library is different. A library is one of the most unique things that we do in this country. While there are libraries across the globe, and I have been to them, there is something fundamentally different in public libraries, in academic libraries, in school libraries, and special libraries in North America and the United States particularly. They grew not because we had a bunch of stuff that needed a parking lot or a set of history that needed to be remembered. They grew out of a social movement. They grew because when women wanted and needed and deserved the vote, they said we need to be educated. We need libraries. It grew when we said children are too important to put in mills. Children are too important to endanger and work. Children are too important because our future is too important for them to work in factories. They need schools. They need to learn. We built public schools with libraries. When we looked at academia and we said that the future from Sputnik and World War II and how we're going to look at freedom and expressing freedom, we need research that is world-class. And when we talked about how we develop world-class scholarship, and we talked about the genius that we wanted to make available to the world in our academies and our universities and our colleges, we knew they needed libraries, not simply to stock and house material, but to accelerate the scholarly conversation of the world. We are on the moon. We stepped foot on that moon because libraries helped people get there. When we looked and said, as early as the 1960s, that you are allowed to marry someone if they're another race, and it took us, yes, 40 and 50 more years to figure out it doesn't matter what sex you are either. That took informed advocates that used libraries, law libraries, to stand and talk to the Supreme Court. It took librarians to get that information, to look at the data, to make that available to scholars and activists alike, to policymakers, to judges. We are here as a society, for good and for ill, because librarians and the libraries that they built talked and expressed a desire that began with the idea of declaring freedom from oppression and starting a country where democratic access was important. And all too often, we forget that. And it may seem to some, when they look in on all these sessions, when they look in at people making really interesting musical instruments with makey boards, when they're doing things with drones, when they're doing improvisational classes, it may be very easy for people to look into the sessions of ILEAD U and say, they're playing. Why are we paying for them to play? Because play is essential. Play is important. Play is how we learn. Because play is learning. And that's fundamentally what we're about. We are not parking lots for materials and things. We are active incubators for ideas and the next great thought and the next great generation. We are not parking lots. And we are important. And everyone in this room, and everyone in the rooms watching this, and everyone in the rooms that are watching this on YouTube years from now, need to remember that our fundamental goal is learning, and we understand that the most powerful thing that we make available to the universe are our communities. That we must stop, and through ILEAD USA have demonstrated how we stop being patronized by our communities and start being energized by our communities. When we look out and we understand the expertise that is available to the world, we want them to play. We want them to play, we want them to think, we want them to imagine, we want them to tinker, we want them to dream, we want them to fight, We want them to advocate. We want them to believe in a better tomorrow and to make it happen. And libraries are fundamental to that. Parking lots, not so much. We have now an opportunity. So almost 15 years ago, I stood on a stage in San Antonio, Texas at the last virtual reference desk conference in a situation which is not unfamiliar to the folks sitting here. Federal funding had been cut. The money that had come to keep these conferences, to keep a conversation about librarianship, had gone. And I said to them what I say to you today, that that's not the end. That it's only the end if we choose it. What we've done here in Illinois, what we've done in Ohio, what we've done in North Dakota, what we've done in Maine, what we've done in New York, what we've done in South Carolina, what we've done is we have realized to embrace failure and adversity and tough conditions as not a stopping point, but a starting point. We have seen everyone in this room face a situation where they were told they couldn't, where they thought they couldn't, where they were given a situation that should have stopped them, and they said, I shall go around. If you build a wall, I will build a door. If you lock the door, I will find a damn window, and we're going to move forward. That's what we know. So we're in a situation now where ILEAD USA does not have an easy answer next year. There is not an IMLS, and thank God for IMLS. They have invested in states, they have invested in librarianship, and they deserve an immense amount of credit, and we thank them greatly. But we don't have that now, and that's an obstacle. And as I said back in San Antonio, it is now not my task. It is now not Ann's task. It is now everyone's task in this room, in those rooms, to figure out how does this continue. Does this continue as an alumni network where we continue to work on our own in our situations and talk and share? Is this a situation where a consortium of state libraries, large urban libraries, small urban libraries begin to sponsor individuals to make this happen again? What's the next version of it? Is the next version looking at the resources that you build about sharing and shadowing and turning that into the next version of ILEAD USA? That's not my decision. That's not Ann's decision. And it's no longer IMLS's decision. It is the decisions of librarians in ILEAD USA and yet to be in ILEAD USA. It is your decisions and your options. What happened after that speech in the virtual reference desk is they began things like it was Yahoo Answers days, and they took to answer boards and they showed librarians that they could provide better answers than anyone else. It turned eventually into Wikipedia, which is rather than yelling at Wikipedia, it turns out if librarians embrace it, build on it, and improve it, they can make a difference. It turned into software and systems, and eventually it turned into virtual reference simply becoming reference. We dropped the modifier. When we began ILEAD USA 6 years ago in its conception, we used terms like participatory librarianship and new librarianship and outreach librarianship and community librarianship and all of these librarianship, and now it is simply librarianship. What we see in these final projects is that we have a future, and it is created here, and it's created by us, and it is a choice that we make. And it is a choice now before you. What do we do now? And what I hope has happened over these 9 months and over these 6 years is now that you understand that when you have that question of what do we do now, it is not a terrifying moment. It is not a scary moment. It is not an ambiguous moment. It is a moment, in Illinois particularly, of birth. It is a moment to birth new ideas, new options, new thoughts. The next ILEAD USA baby will be the next version of ILEAD USA. The next thing that we have is to come together and figure out how do we take this message and put it forward. We are the voice now. And we know that even if we talk about failure, that is a chance for success and learning. We know that just because a project ends, that's just the beginning of the next one. And we know that if someone doesn't show up to that program in a week, that means it's a chance to come up with another version, and another version, and another version. And also, we have learned that we are strong together. That the voices of sarcasm, the snarky voices that seek to cut us down, even within our profession, and say somehow that we are less than what we can be, that we should expect less of ourselves, that they are wrong. And we are now a chorus that stands up and in a loud, unified voice says, librarianship is strong, it is vital, it is important, it is moving forward, and it is me. I am responsible and I will make it happen. We have given tools. And what we have shown is that the instructors that have lectured and the instructors that have shown, they have, I believe, demonstrated the most important thing, which is to teach is to learn, to read is to write, to listen is to speak. That we have this belief that somehow you're one or the other. And the truth is, we're all of those things. And the most important thing starts tomorrow, which is the conversation moves from your neighbor and your project and the person beyond you to the person outside of the library, to the scholar, to the student, to the child, to the mother who's dealing with autism, to the man who's lost a job, to the teenager who doesn't know if they're going to make it to a college, to the family that doesn't know if they're going to know where the next meal comes from. Because that's the most important conversation, and that's what we're all about. And I have no doubt that the people in here, that every one of you has the capability of doing that. Every one of you has the capability of being greater because you are part of an amazing whole. 4,000 years of history available to us, and that's what we're going to do. So ladies and gentlemen, this is not the end of ILEAD USA. This is only the beginning. I thank you, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Thank you all.